Hello, challengers. We are here in another weekly live. This live happens every Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. And today we're going to be talking about mid-level and senior Java developers, how to get a remote US job, and what are the strategies, what you can do to get there. So what are the key websites to get a job in the US remotely? So there are many things here. And let me tell you some context on why you could think that getting a remote job in the US, might be useful for you. So mostly in the US is the country that will pay more for software developers. So it might be useful for you depending on the country you live. So if you are prepared, if you are skilled enough, it might be a good deal for you. And if you are in the US, it's fine because you're going to learn here some principles that can be applied even if you are in the US to get a remote job if you are in the US. Obviously, if you are in the US, your salary will be higher because you are living already in a country where the cost of life is high. But if you are abroad, if you are in a third world country, probably you're going to earn a little bit less, but that's okay because you're going to spend less as well. So just giving you some context because I know there are some people here from the US, other people from South Africa, and other people in England. So there are people from all over the world. So just giving you some context to let you know that still this content is important for you because we're going to be talking about principles that will work for all of you. So what are the key websites for remote US Java jobs? So there are general job boards. Like the most famous and the most used one is LinkedIn. And there is a way to filter only remote jobs, right? So for example, if you're looking for jobs, you can look for remote jobs here. So all of those jobs are remote jobs. Yeah, you can select here if it's remote, and you can select the city. So there are many options here where you can look and apply for the job. Just be careful because if you apply for many positions with a generic CV, it won't work very much. So we're going to be discussing that, but just to let you know that really is that easy to find jobs. We have LinkedIn and we have all the jobs in our reach. We also have Indeed, which does something very similar from what we have on LinkedIn. And we have Glassdoor. So Glassdoor, you can also see the salaries and the interview process. For some reason, the salary is not very precise. So most of the times you're going to find the salary like 30% less from the real salary. So keep that in mind because if you actually negotiate your salary and you're relying 100% on Glassdoor, you're going to keep in mind that you have the wrong information. And there's also tech-specific job boards. So there's Stack Overflow jobs, GitHub jobs, AngelList. So this potentially is a good one if you're living abroad because, for startups, might be useful to pay a little bit less. And if you're living abroad, it's okay to earn a little bit less because the cost of life is also lower. There's Hired, Dice. So my recommendation is to try first on LinkedIn and Indeed. And if those don't work, then you go to those other ones. But the important thing is that you apply for the jobs because if you don't apply, nothing will happen, obviously. And applying for jobs with your generic CV won't work as well. So that's good to remember. So there is also the company career pages. And so you can go directly to those big websites like Netflix, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, IBM. We're going to find many opportunities. And obviously, you're going to have to be well prepared. So for Netflix, Amazon, or Google, we're going to have to be very sharp with coding interviews. And we're going to have to be very sharp as well with system design interviews. So I recommend you guys to practice mock interviews with a friend, because it's a very good skill either to receive an interview or to give an interview to someone. So, and we're going to be also practicing it. Like, it's a great way to be practicing algorithms, because it's so boring to practice algorithms on your own. So, but yeah, just so you know, you can also apply for those companies right away. And there is a friend of mine who was living in Argentina, and he applied for Amazon here in Ireland, and he passed in the interview, and Amazon paid absolutely everything. They paid probably 30K euros for him, and they paid the flight, they paid rent, they paid the transfer of all his furnitures. Like, he even taken his sofa from Argentina to Ireland. So like, they paid everything to him, and he has a high salary. So it's possible to get a job on Amazon, Google, and they will pay everything for you. They will do all the work to relocate you. And I also check US-based tech companies. For example, Reddit. That is not anymore Twitter, it's X. Shopify. So there are many companies where we can apply directly as well. But really, I recommend you to check first on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the place. And we work remotely. There is also many companies there. One of my mentees, Alexandre Rocha, he got a job in the Ambush company. So he found it probably in this website. So okay, so what skills should you have if you're a mid-level developer? Probably, very likely most of you here are senior, but let's talk about mid-level as well. Is there any mid-level developer here? You can raise your hands. Any intermediate developer? And guys, if you can turn on your camera, that would be great, because then I can see you. Everyone is senior then. Okay, great. So core responsibilities. If you're a mid-level software developer, so you have to be good code design and like how to implement basic features. Obviously, as software developers, we need to make an effort to write clean code, to write concise methods, use single responsibility principle, use cohesion principles, and create your code in a low coupled way, and create your code that's testable. A great way to see if your code is good is when you can use unit tests in an easy way. If you can test your code, your method in an easy way with a unit test, it means that your code is good. And you need to be good on debugging and troubleshooting issues. And you also need to be an easy person to deal with, like collaborating with team members, PMs, QA. It's very important that you don't use technical jargons with business people. Otherwise, if they see that you are speaking too much of technical things that they don't understand, they will be defensive against you, and you won't be able to create a connection with them. So we have to be careful when you're talking with business people, and we need to be like less technical as possible and explain things to them in a way they will understand. Otherwise, it's even difficult to gain visibility to get a promotion, because in most times what will give you a promotion is if you can solve business problems, right? It's not about coding. Coding, anyone can do that. AI can do that. Like coding, the profession of being a programmer is that. Nobody cares anymore. So nowadays we need to be problem solvers. We need to be good learners, right? That's what the market is value nowadays. And for technical skills, like we need to be proficient, but not Java 8, like Java 21. Lambdas, obviously, like the most important features are Lambda streams, exception handling, concurrency, like all be like the basics. Experience with Spring, REST, APIs, databases. Basic understanding of cloud could be AWS, Azure, GCP, CI/CD, and soft skills. Like we can't underestimate soft skills because it's very important. The more you grow, the more senior you are, the more important it is to be a good communicator. Like you need to be able to interact with different people, because you're going to have to solve more and more business problems. You're going to have to talk with other teams. You're going to have to maybe agree on an API contract with other teams. And sometimes you're going to have to influence the whole team about using good programming practices so that you improve the software, or you have to influence the team to refactor the code. So the more you grow, the more communication skills are important, because only you doing the work is great because you're a senior developer and you can do a lot. But if you can influence your whole team, then you make a lot bigger impact. And obviously, like after senior, like you have to develop those skills if you want to become a staff or a manager. I think most of you here want to become a staff, want to be more technical, but it's okay. Like in both directions, you're gonna have to improve this people side, right? And for the senior position, usually 5 years plus or more, depends. So one great skill for a senior is to be able to mentor junior developers, right? And I'm not saying that, and it to be a mentor is not to give all the answers. Sometimes you're gonna have to help the junior developer to find their own answers. I remember when I was working in Brazil, there was a junior developer who was a bit lazy. And like when you see that a person is a bit lazy, they're not doing the work, then it's impossible to mentor someone like that. And I was telling him, hey man, like you don't know those basic things, you don't know those object-oriented programming concepts, but I recommend this book. This book is free. Can you start reading? And then he was always giving me excuses. He was saying, Rafael, I can't because I have some commitments and, I don't have time. There was always a different excuse. Every day I was telling him that. And I was telling him that very often. And like he wasn't taking any action. He wasn't doing anything. So like when you're mentoring junior developer like that, there is no point, right? Like he wasn't doing the work. He was there just because of the money. But as a consequence, he got fired. So anyway, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, like this was an exceptional case, but most junior developers, they are highly motivated. They want to learn. So help them grow, because I can't count how many mentors I had when I was a junior developer. There was amazing developers helping me, guiding me. So like now that you're a senior developer, help them, right? Help them to be better. And as a consequence, you're going to improve your communication skills. And your communication skills is very important in an interview. I was talking with a manager here in Ireland, and he told me, here, Rafael, 50% of the interview are going to analyze the communication skills of the candidate. The other 50% is going to be technical skills. This means that communication is extremely important, right? It's 50% of the whole interview. So it's basically if you are someone who is likable, if you can communicate clearly, like if you don't go to the weeds when you're talking about something, like there's a lot involved in communication, right? It's not just to speak concise, and it's a little bit about the character as well. For example, like as a senior developer, if you don't know something, you can just say, hey, I don't know this. You don't need to be like kind of improvising the answer, because if you're a senior, they will notice, right? If you don't know the answer, you can just say, okay. It was funny because there was an interview from a friend of mine in MasterCard, and I really liked him because he's a very good developer and a very nice person. And the manager was saying in his interview, he was saying that he asked something, I don't remember exactly what was. And then the manager asked him, as a developer, if he knew a specific concept. I don't remember which was it. But then he said, oh, I really don't know about this concept, but I can Google it. And then, funnily enough, the manager right away said, oh, that's the developer I want. Right? Because really, it makes sense, right? Who wants a developer who memorizes things? You can find something on the internet in seconds. It's not someone who memorizes things that is a valuable software engineer. Instead, it's someone who can solve a problem, right? You can, and if you are able to look on the internet and solve a problem, that's what is necessary. And you have to be able to design scalable and maintainable systems, make architectural decisions. And this is important, like to create a document with the pros and cons and explain to your team, like that, because like in any architecture decision, like there's no silver bullet, right? There will be like the pros and cons, and you have to decide, and you have to discuss with your whole team on what problem your architecture will solve. As a senior developer, you have to be able to also give good code reviews and drive the best practices, right? So doing meetings with your team and influencing them and teaching them on improving their code, improving their testing, documentation, that will help you a lot. That will help you and your team, because if there is an issue and if you have robust tests, you're going to have less problems. And regarding technical skills, like it's recommended that you have deep Java expertise. You don't need to know everything about the JVM. It's a nice to have though, but you need to know at least the basics of some important parameters, performance tuning. If you're putting a Java project on production, you might need to use some performance tuning parameters. You need to know about Spring, cloud, security, data. And again, sometimes you don't need to know everything about those things. So just need to know enough so that if you encounter a problem with security, you're able to study and solve the problem. And regarding cloud native development, like Docker, Kubernetes, serverless, those are must-have skills as a backend Java developer. And also experience with distributed system messaging, Kafka, RabbitMQ. And for soft skills, leadership. And when I say leadership, it doesn't mean that you have to be a tech lead. It basically means that you have to be able to, for example, to create a meeting, talk with your team, talk about the benefits of using a certain technology or not. So regarding cross-functional collaboration, this is very important when we are working with microservices, right? Because we're going to be in several meetings, and sometimes we have to negotiate what API should we use or what parameters we should use in our APIs. And like you're going to have to negotiate well that, because in some companies, there will be developers who are not very good, and they will create APIs that, they go back and forth and they invoke, 10 microservices to do something simple. And sometimes you can make things easier, right? You can, if you are collaborating with other teams, you can give them an idea. Strategic thinking. So for example, if you see that there are many microservices that are not doing many things, there you can, for example, make a meeting with your team and say, hey, this microservice here is kind of useless because it has only one microservice. And this happened in the previous company I was working for. There was a microservice that was doing nothing. And like sometimes those things don't make much sense. And communication, obviously. So you need to be able to communicate well with your team. And like when I say communication, it's like handling conflict. It's also being able to discuss a technical subject, or being able to discuss about the business, or being able to understand business requirements, like to create a quick meeting with business and understand what's going on. Also avoid meetings. Sometimes an email could solve the problem. We could communicate. Sometimes a meeting is not necessary. And sometimes you can communicate through your chat. I don't know, could be Teams or Slack. I don't know what they use. And you have to have the problem solver mindset. And this is very important. The companies really value that because, like I said, nowadays, anyone can create code, right? So even I think a kid that is 4 years old can create code because you can just say, hey, AI, create this code here. So, like I said, the programmer profession is already dead. So you have to be a good problem solver, right? A good problem solver is difficult to find in the market. So effective application strategies. So to apply for jobs in the US, you need to tailor your resume, your CV. So it doesn't work to apply 1,000 CVs and just hope for luck to happen. It won't happen. Because I hear so many developers saying, hey, Rafael, I sent more than 1,000 CVs, nothing happens. Well, there might be two problems, right? The first problem is that your CV is too generic. The second problem is that, is your CV good enough? Don't know. So it's important that you highlight relevant experience technologies for each job. So if you see that there is a job that they require like Java, Micronaut, Quarkus, or Golang, we will create a CV that has nothing to do with that. So it's important to tailor your CV for those opportunities. And also use quantifiable achievements. Why? Because you have to show value. For example, if you improved an application throughput by 30%, explain that. Or if you improve the performance of a query, explain that improved the performance of a query and decrease the query time from 5 seconds to 100 milliseconds, for example. That's a great way to show the impact you created. And I'm pretty sure that all of you guys here, you have created something impactful in your career. So it's just a matter of remembering, okay, like during my career, like I did this, I created these components that improved productivity of developers by, I don't know, 20%. And I used this strategy on my microservice. I used cache. And now in this API endpoint, by using cache, I basically can do 10,000 requests per minute, right? This is an example, like it went from 1,000 requests per minute to 10,000 requests per minute. So it's a lot faster. So if you can remember the impact you created throughout your career, and you can put that on your CV, that will help you to get the best opportunities. And I would go even further than that, because I would create an article explaining all the process, what you've done. You can put code, you can explain everything, and then you can put on LinkedIn, hey, I improved the performance of this API, of this microservice API. And here you go. I have the article explaining everything. And by the way, creating articles is a great way to get visibility and to get a job abroad, because when you create an article, you prove that you have the knowledge. And when you have a blog with many blog posts, you create one of the most powerful CVs. You create, like, basically it's a proof that you know your stuff. So you become a reference, and this also helps you so much to get a job, because when you write articles, you are ahead of the vast majority of developers, because most developers don't share their knowledge. It's just one tip, but if you want to go in the traditional way, it's fine. It's going to be a little bit harder, but it's still possible. If you tailor your resume, if you tailor your CV for each company, you have much bigger chance. Leverage networks. Ask for referral from connections in the US, and you're going to probably most of your messages will be ignored, but at least try, right? At least people that are doing effort. Because I received a message from a random guy to work on MasterCard. He said, hey, my friend, refer me to MasterCard. So it was ridiculous, right? How can I refer someone who don't even explain anything? Obviously, I won't. So don't make the same mistake, right? So if you're asking for a referral to someone, say that you're making the effort. Say that you're a highly skilled developer. Position yourself as a highly skilled developer, not as a random developer, right? Because like you would only refer someone who you trust. And if you have an article, you have a blog, then you can say, hey, this is my blog, this is my knowledge. I would highly appreciate if you can refer me. Then it's different, right? You have some trust. Attend virtual US tech events and meetups to do networking, right? And to meet people. And obviously in those conversations, it's important that you position yourself as a great developer. Because if you talk to someone and you don't position yourself as a developer who is making the effort, who is doing the work, like the networking will be useless, right? They will say, okay, what do you do? And obviously when you go to a meetup, to go to an event, you must be a giver, right? You must help people with something. You give something and you don't expect anything back. So that's a good mindset to have, right? And use application tracking system. So what is that? So include keywords like Java, Spring Boot, AWS. And for direct applications, apply via company career pages and follow up on LinkedIn. So, and what are the essential Java technologies for remote jobs? So yeah, you probably know, because that's pretty much the default in the market. Core Java, And I will add here algorithms because even though you won't use it on your day-to-day job, you're going to have to use it on interviews and system design. And then algorithms, obviously, data structures, big O notation, system design, basically cloud components. And you can watch many videos on YouTube to learn more about system design. So obviously, okay, core Java features, multi-threading collections, JVM tuning, and OOP is very important. A little bit of functional programming, frameworks, Spring Boot, and could be Quarkus, Micronaut as well, Jakarta. And for databases, Postgres is the most used relational database, MongoDB, Cassandra for NoSQL, Cloud DevOps. AWS is the most used cloud provider in the market, right? And we also have Azure, GCP. And don't worry, if you are working with Azure, it's totally fine because the concepts are pretty much the same. So if you learn Azure or GCP, you can easily move to another cloud provider. So don't worry much about that. And Docker Kubernetes to containerize your application. Jenkins is potentially the most used automation tool for your software cycle. So when we are using Java, Jenkins is pretty popular. I like Jenkins. Some people don't like it. They think it's too complicated, but I personally like it. So for API and messaging, there is REST, GraphQL, gRPC, Kafka, potentially is the most used message broker. But if you want something simpler, RabbitMQ, SQS, or AWS. And for testing, JUnit, Mockito test containers. And you can even use the help of AI to create tests. Obviously, you have to review the code, but anyway. Git, Maven, IntelliJ is the most used IDE. And for interviews, you need to know algorithms and system design. And keep in mind that none of those skills you're going to learn overnight. It's going to take time. Algorithms is one of the most difficult ones because this is not a skill that you're going to develop on a day-to-day job. This is a skill that you can only develop outside of your job. So try to make it fun. So when you're studying algorithms, try to create a way to make it fun. I remember some friends of mine, they made it fun by creating weekly lives on YouTube on their channel, and they were solving algorithms together. That's a great way to learn algorithms, right? You can, do that with some friends and do that on YouTube. Call your friends, call people that you can help. Because, guys, you're senior developers. You have so much experience, so much knowledge. So you can learn with your friends and also create some nice content to people. Interview process and preparation. And by the way, in the end of this call, I'm going to give you the mind map. So stay tuned for that. So, okay, let's see here. Typical stages. So we're going to have the initial screen with HR. We're going to discuss the experience, salary, motivation. So here there's going to be a little bit of a negotiation, right? This is usually the typical first stage. It's just a screening, right? It's just conversation to understand if you are like minimally prepared for the challenge. Technical screening, they might do an online coding test on HackerRank or Codility. And it's always the same, right? It's algorithms, data structures. We're going to have to talk about big O notation. You might have to optimize your algorithm, and you have to communicate loud your thought process, because that's also a communication test, right? So yeah, you have to practice that as much as possible. Or you might have a take-home test. So a friend of mine here in Ireland, he got a take-home test for a very good company. And that was it. Like, he spent his weekend on this test. It was a recommendation. So when you have a recommendation, obviously you have higher chances, because, you have a higher trust than someone who doesn't have a recommendation. So he spent his whole weekend to create this test, and he passed in the interview. So sometimes you're going to have a take-home test as well. And that's fine, because it's a learning as well. Even if you don't pass in the interview, it's okay. You have something, right, you learned. And you can even use that material to create an article and share your knowledge as well. So, and for technical interviews, for seniors, you're going to have this design interview. You're going to have to design scalable systems. Could be a URL shortener or payment system. Could be a pair programming as well. I did a pair programming test in one of the companies I was working before. And in the pair programming, like, it's two things will be tested. Well, mostly those two things, like your capability of being a good problem solver and your capability of working in a team, like working with someone else. Would you accept their suggestions? Like, or would you impose your ideas? How easygoing you are to work in a team? Do you have a strong ego? So all of those things will be evaluated. So in a pair programming, basically just be friendly and don't impose your opinions, because you might be wrong. So, like, those things are evaluated. Basically, if you are an easy person to work with. And if you consider yourself not easy to work with, it's okay, because those skills you can improve. Framework deep dive, Spring Hibernate. Could be Quarkus, could be Micronaut. Behavior, star method, teamwork, conflict resolution. So sometimes they'll ask, oh, do you have a conflict in your previous company? And then you have to, I recommend you writing a document. How did you resolve the conflict? Because there's always some kind of conflict, right? And it's important that we know how to deal with it and how to solve it. And they're going to ask you that. So just write it down and be prepared for the interview. And they might ask you for a cultural fit, team dynamics, projects. So a mentee of mine, Alexandre Rocha, he did an interview for an American company. And the culture of this company, I think the name of the company is Lumenauta, and he got a job there. And the cultural fit of this company was to have the growth mindset. I don't know if you ever heard of this word. So basically there are two mindsets, right? The fixed mindset is the mindset that you think that you can't grow in any skill. And the growth mindset is the mindset where you know for sure that you can grow in any skill you want, as long as you put the work and the right focus. And Alexandre Rocha, he had the growth mindset. He has the growth mindset. And he also told the interviewer, and it was funny because it wasn't even something technical. Right? He just said, hey, I'm reading this book, and this book is really good. I think it was Think and Grow Rich, which is a very good book. Highly recommended. I know it's not technical, but it's important that we expand our vision at least a little bit out of the technical things. Otherwise, we're going to become that developer that can't see beyond technical. And that was my mistake back in the days. I was focusing too much on the technical and I was an underpaid developer. So that's why it's important to go beyond technical. So basically, Alexandre was talking about this book. He was talking that he has the growth mindset, and the manager liked him. So this is kind of a cultural fit interview. So basically, it's to see if your ideas and your personality fits the company. Obviously, what they don't want someone who is difficult to work with. They don't want someone who complains all the time. They don't want someone who is negative. They don't want someone who has a very strong ego. They don't want someone arrogant. They don't want someone who is annoying. They don't want someone who speaks too much. They don't want, there's many kind of people who are not pleasant to work with. And I'm pretty sure you would agree with me that you don't want to work with someone who is arrogant or someone who thinks that knows everything. This is annoying, right? No one likes that. So much better to be humble, because to be humble is a superpower, right? If you think you know everything, you are already on your way to become an obsolete developer, because you're going to stop learning. You're going to think you know everything and you don't know anything, right? So cultural fit is very important. Like one thing that's simple, like just smile, right? Smiling is so good in an interview because, you become a friendly person. People will like you. So do that. Preparation tips. So, well, for learning algorithms, it takes time, right? So we need to put the work, like maybe daily, right? Like maybe solve one challenge a day and keep improving our skills. And this is called deliberate practicing. And all the champions in the world, they do that. Basically, they use discipline and they keep on learning. And I would say to focus on easy and medium algorithms. And also review system design concepts like scalability, caching, databases, and also do mock interviews with your friends, because really only watching videos won't help you much. So find a friend and start doing interviews. Do a mock interview and learn from them. Prepare for behavior interviews, for leadership and challenges. And like I said, mock interviews are very important. Additional crucial points, time zones, right? So if you are looking for a job in the US, time zone is a consideration. So if you are in Brazil, for example, you're going to be working during the night. I think you would be working from around 5 p.m., 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. I don't know, or should be something around that. I don't know, but you would be working in the evening. So this is something to consider as well. Communication skills, clear English, right? Written and spoken. Like if you have very bad pronunciation and you don't practice English, then it is very difficult that you're going to get a job in the US, because the bar is usually high, right? So, and for senior positions, even harder. So, but it's okay if you are from a third world country like me. Nowadays, I live in Ireland. So it's fine that, because if you find a mid-level opportunity, it's fine if you live in a third world country, because still the salary will be quite high for your cost of life. And portfolio, create a portfolio, and like open source contributions. This is amazing, right? If you can contribute to open source and put that on your CV, you're already another level. Because I would say that less than 5% of developers contribute to open source projects. And if you're able to contribute to open source projects, that's a huge boost on your CV, right? If you can do at least 1 hour a week, that would be great. Certifications, they are optional, but they're helpful. AWS certifications, they are the most valuable in Europe, but probably in the world, right? There are certifications as well. Because, for senior developers, not so much, but, depending on the context, like that you're searching for jobs in the US, then like those certifications that are valid in the whole world, they definitely count. They are definitely important. And guys, that's pretty much it. I'm now gonna share with you the form here. So basically it's a form so that you can give feedback for this presentation. And by completing this form, you're gonna get the mind map. So just a moment. And basically you can give your feedback. So you can tell me what kind of content you would like to have in the weekly lives. So all of those things you can do so that we improve every week. We improve the weekly live, we make it better. Okay, so let me share here with you. Very good to see many people here in this weekly live. So that's really amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. And thanks for filling out the form. And did you get the mind map access? Please let me know if you got access to the mind map. Okay, great. Just to make sure, because sometimes there is some problems with access. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great week. And don't forget, the next Tuesday, we're going to be here again at 10 p.m. London time. And I look forward to see you again, okay? And as always, break your limits and focus on your career and stay consistent, okay? So I'll see you then. Cheers. Thank you.